It's true.
Chair, thank you. We're going to continue with family evidence now, and I'm going to ask that our last witness, Crystal Stenning, be sworn, please.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Could you give your full name first, please?
Crystal Vicky Stenning.
Thank you. Crystal, you are the sister of Rocky Stenning, who died on the 19th of July 2018 when he was 26 years old at Chelmsford Prison, yes?
Yeah.
You came before this inquiry when it was in its non-statutory phase and had an evidence session back in March 2022.
Yeah.
And you've now provided to the inquiry a witness statement under Rule 9. It's 33 pages long, and you should have a copy of it in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Could I ask you, please, first of all, to turn to page 33? That is the page of your witness statement. We can see that the statement is dated the 8th of January 2026, and that is the page that where you have made a statement of truth and signed.
Yeah.
Crystal, are you content sitting here today that your witness statement is true and accurate?
I am.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you, I know that it's very difficult to keep your voice up as much as you can,
Yeah.
because there's a transcriber in the room, and we want to hear your evidence. I know that it's not easy, but I'll keep reminding you. All right? Mm-hmm. What I'd like to do is just take you through, you know that we're not going to go through your witness statement line by line, because the whole of it stands already, now that it's been submitted as your evidence to this inquiry. But I want us to go through it together today, starting with some of the information you've given us in the early part of the statement about the background to your family life. Mm-hmm. I understand that you are the eldest of 3 children, and that Rocky was the baby of the family.
It was, yeah.
If you want to follow, I'll keep telling you whereabouts in the statement I am. But if you do want to follow, at the moment, we're on page 2, and I'm looking at the sections under the heading background. Crystal, you tell us there that you remember the day Rocky was born like it was yesterday.
I do.
You were young yourself.
11 years old.
11 years old. And you tell us that you were called into the school office.
It was my birthday.
It was your birthday when he arrived.
My birthday, yeah.
You say there, I was so excited, I nearly passed out. And in the next paragraph, you say that Rocky was like your own little present gifted to you for your birthday. You go on to describe family life, and you say that you, your sister, and Rocky were incredibly close. Is that right?
Yeah. It was like the Three Musketeers.
The Three Musketeers. You say that a day did not pass without you telling one another that you loved each other. No. And that you sometimes, as a young girl, would pretend that Rocky was your baby.
Yeah.
Later, I think, and you must tell me if I'm summarising things wrongly, you did come to take what we might describe as quite a maternal role in Rocky's life.
Rocky and my sister's life, yeah.
You looked after them both.
Mm-hmm.
You tell us that when Rocky was at school, there were no problems with his behaviour or his development.
No, nothing at all.
And that you had a very happy childhood.
Very happy, yeah.
With the strong bond that we've just described. You go on to tell us, Crystal, that when Rocky was about 6, your mum and dad split, and that when your father left the house, Rocky very much missed having him at home. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. He was like his male figure around him. It was just all us women. And yeah, he did complain about that quite a bit as well.
He complained about what, I'm sorry?
Too many women around him, mothering him all the time.
You were all looking after him. You explain that, in fact, because Rocky then, when your father had moved out of the house, Rocky went to spend most weekends with him, that actually that strengthened the bond between Rocky and his father.
Yeah.
And they did everything together. Your father took him out and they did all kinds of things together. You also tell us, I'm looking at the very bottom of page 2 and paragraph 14, you say there, my mum has always been a good mum and continued to be after Dad left. Rocky idolised our mum and we always used to joke that he was a mummy's boy.
Completely, yeah.
What did he think of that?
Well, we didn't really like it, but we was always taking the mick out of him.
Yes. You do go on the next page. You say that you had a good life and all was well, but there came a time, I think, I'll put it like this, that the home environment in your mother's home became less stable and less healthy for Rocky.
Yeah.
Is that fair? You also go on to explain that there came a time when your mum had to leave the family home and you then stepped in, having already by that stage moved out.
Yeah.
You were in your late teens, I think.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And that, as I understand it, and understandably, was hard on you and on Rocky and your sister.
Yeah, it was terribly hard, yeah.
Your father had moved to Suffolk after, was that shortly after he and your mum had split, or was it?
It was quite a few years later. He lived in Grays at first, where Rocky and my sister used to spend a lot of their time.
Yes.
And then he moved up to Suffolk, and that's when they used to go and spend time up there as well.
I see. So Rocky would go there to stay with him?
Yeah.
You explain that, and I'm not sure whether this is something you knew at the time, you will help me, that your father did suffer from bouts of depression. And that he had a diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Is that something you knew at the time or something you've learned later?
I don't think I knew or understood when I was younger what it was. I remember my mum speaking about it.
Yes.
And then as I got older, me and my dad came very close, like he was like my best friend.
Yes.
So he confided in me a lot.
Yes.
And told me about his depression and struggles. Yeah.
Thank you. When Rocky was 14, your father died. And by that time, both you and your sister had left your mum's home. So Rocky was there alone with her. Is that right?
Yep.
Your father had taken his own life. And my understanding from your witness statement is that Rocky was woken by police officers to be given that news.
Yeah, he was asleep on the settee in my mum's front room, and officers went in and woke him up and told him, yeah.
That, I think, you tell us, was one of the... You mark two major events, and we'll come to the second one that was in October 2010. But as I understand it, Crystal, that was the first major event that you can see had a devastating impact on Rocky.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
You say there that he had lost his hero in the most tragic of circumstances.
Yeah. My dad always said he wanted my brother to have a different life to him. He wanted him to have a better life. But then he mapped out his life, I felt, because my dad's dad died when my dad was 14, and then he left Rocky at 14, so it sort of made him start living his life the same.
Yes, thank you. What you described there was a sort of overnight change following that event and that news in your previously very happy little brother. Tell us a little bit about that. How was he impacted? How did he seem to you at the time?
Rocky was like the life and soul. even when he was younger, he'd make everybody laugh and smile and just feel good about themselves.
Yes.
And he just went withdrawn and turned to things to try and help him cope. And yeah, he was very angry with the world, I think, angry with everyone.
Yes. You said just now that he turned to things to help him cope. One of the things, as I understand it, you didn't know at the time but know now, is that at around about that time and in the aftermath of your father's death, Rocky had turned to cannabis.
Yeah.
You think now, thinking back, that he was using cannabis to try to block out his grief and his feelings. And you also tell us that he just was desperate to feel normal.
Just like, I don't really know how to explain it. It was like he was smoking to sort of block out anything, and then he'd put on this act of funny Rocky, like the comedian, like everyone went to him to get cheered up if they felt like he would cheer them up.
Yes.
But it obviously wasn't what it was doing for him in the beginning, wasn't happening as it further went on. It was just an habit by then, so it wasn't masking anything.
Yes. But at the time, is this right, you had no idea that he had turned to cannabis in that way?
I sort of had an inkling that he started smoking, but he's a young boy and he's not under my care and there's nothing really you can... So, yeah, and then we did start to worry once it sort of spiralled a little bit.
Yes. We'll come to that. I just want to note that one of the other things you tell us in this section of your witness statement, is this right, is that no support at all was offered to Rocky in the wake of your father's death?
No.
Neither from school?
No.
Nor from any other organisation?
Not that I can remember at all, no. I was offered bereavement counselling, and I don't remember Rocky being offered it. I think my sister might have been as well.
Yes.
Who offered it to you?
Mind in Thurrock, I think it was.
Thank you. You tell us that by the time we're coming into early 2008 and Rocky is 16, he appeared to you to be beginning to spiral out of control.
Yeah.
In what way? Tell us a little bit about that.
He was seeming very paranoid and very angry at the world, and always thought that someone was watching him or looking at him in some sort of way or judging him. He didn't feel like he fit in. He wasn't as good as everyone else. And yeah, it just seemed to be getting worse and worse.
The other thing that I think happened at around about that time is that he started to clash with police or come to the attention of police.
Mm-hmm.
And is this right, Crystal? It's your view that that was deliberate on his part and that it was essentially a cry for help?
Yeah, I think quite a lot of the times he'd have this angry outburst and he wouldn't want to take it out on obviously my mum, and so he'd go out in the street and start something to try and get arrested, to just get taken away from the situation. I remember this one time he actually went into our local shop and deliberately tried to steal something in front of the shopkeeper.
Yes.
And the shopkeeper knew him and he was just like, just put it back for him, and he would not. He was waiting for him to phone the police.
Yes.
So they could come and get him.
He wanted help, is your impression, and in the way that he knew how to at 16 was trying to make that clear to others.
He thought, if the police take you away, then that's help them.
Yes. When he was 16, as I understand it, in March 2008, your fears about him spiralling out of control were realised when he made an attempt to take his life.
Mm-hmm.
He told you about that himself, I think, is that right?
Yeah.
So it was an attempt to hang himself, which was unsuccessful, and he came home and told you about it.
He'd gone over to the common, we call it, where we live.
Yes.
And he took his dog with him as well, and he tried to hang himself over there, but it broke.
Thank you. As a result of that, your Mum took him to hospital and he was admitted at 16 to the Priory in Chelmsford. He was eventually, he made a number of attempts, I think, to leave the Priory, is that right?
Yeah.
And as a result, was it as a result of those attempts to leave that he was sectioned? Was he still 16 when he was first sectioned?
Yeah.
And he was moved then to a secure unit in Surrey, Alpha Hospital.
Yeah.
You've also, I think from the records, discovered that at that time, because you've obviously taken the time to go through the records that you have with your representatives, at the time there wasn't a formal or settled diagnosis for Rocky, but what you have noted in the records is that there's a reference to a major depressive disorder or a depressive episode.
They just blamed drugs.
They just...
Blamed drugs. Every time there was something, they blamed drugs and said that's all that was wrong with him.
Cannabis use.
Yeah.
So was that the case during this first admission, first to the Priory and then to Alpha?
To our understanding, he was depressed and low, and he tried to do what he tried to do. And
Yes.
he was smoking at that time, but I don't believe it was the reason why he done it. But that's all doctors used to say to us.
Yes. That's important, Crystal, because I think we're going to come on. This was the first of 5 inpatient admissions, the first that we're talking about now when Rocky was 16. And I think, is this right? You must tell me if it's not. It's your view that in each of those admissions, clinicians took the view that Rocky's mental health difficulties had been induced by or were caused by his use of cannabis.
Yeah. On that first one, they didn't use the terms how you've just said it, but everyone after that in Basildon Hospital, they said this is a drug-induced psychosis episode every time. And they never looked into what had gone on, even though I'd sit there through meetings and tell them exactly what had gone on. There was no thought for that.
So throughout his later admissions, is this right, you would attempt to engage with clinicians and those who were treating him to ask them effectively to look past or look beneath the use of cannabis at the background and what had been happening to Rocky as a baseline?
Yeah.
And what kind of response did you get?
They say that he's on a 28-day section. Once that's finished, the drugs will be out of his system and he'll be back to normal.
Yes. That was never, I think it's fair to say, what actually happened, was it?
No, he would... I don't like to use the word normal, but he would come around, I'd like to say. He come around to Rocky again.
Yes.
But he was far from better. He was always depressed, always anxious, always his fingers was bit down to there. That the drugs, the cannabis, should I say, might have tipped something in his brain, but
Yes.
that wasn't the root of Rocky's problems.
I understand. Is it your feeling, Crystal, that the root of Rocky's problems was never properly explored?
Yes, definitely.
You said you don't like to use the term normal, and I understand what you mean. We might say, might we, that he sometimes returned to stability in that he wasn't exhibiting psychotic symptoms, but he didn't return to the Rocky that you knew.
No, never. Even in his, like you say, stable situation, and even through bouts of really good things. I remember him sitting in my front room with me and my sister and my partner, and then just break down and crying in the middle of it because he wants his dad.
Yes.
All I want to do is be with my dad.
Thank you. One of the other things that we note from your description of this first inpatient admission, first to the Priory, then to Alpha, when he was just 16, is that he was at that time prescribed antipsychotics. And those did seem to you to help Rocky's mood, and he appeared more stable when he was on antipsychotics.
Yeah.
I think it became a feature of his life that he would be started on antipsychotics, reach a level of stability, and then be discharged. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. There wasn't any follow-up. There was no, like, hanging on to him to make sure that it was happening.
Yes. We know that when Rocky was discharged from the Alpha Hospital in Surrey, he came to live with you.
Mm-hmm.
So how long had he been there? Can you remember? How long was he an inpatient for at age 16?
I would say 6 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks.
Thank you.
Because I always remember that the section is 28 days, and then in that first instant where he was young and everything, I think he stayed a little bit longer.
Longer, because he was very young.
Yeah, but I don't feel like he was in a psychotic episode on that one.
No. After that, we know, and we're going to come through them, Crystal, but so as to set them in context, we had, or Rocky had, I'm so sorry, his second period as an inpatient was in 2014, and that was over a month between the 23rd of August and the 1st of October 2014. That was to Basildon. He then had another period of admission for about a month, so it's the 28 days you've just referred to, between October and November 2015. Then in December 2017, a very short 2-day admission, and then a longer period at Basildon in March to July 2018, before he came to be transferred to Chelmsford Prison.
Yeah.
When Rocky came to live with you after that period of treatment, when he was still 16, how did he seem?
He wasn't really with it. He seemed, you could tell he was drugged up. It was like there was something there. Like, we went to the pictures once, and he was so engrossed and involved in the drink that he wasn't taking no notice of nothing else. It was like he'd never seen, I don't know what the drugs was doing to him, but he just didn't seem like he was there, if you know, like as if there was a block had been put on him.
Yes.
And then he put on a lot of weight.
As a result of the medication?
Of the medication, yeah. And, yeah, he didn't seem like himself.
As I understand it, one of the side effects that you saw and he became aware of is that he was putting on weight.
Yeah.
And for that reason, around about 4 or 5 months after he'd been discharged and come to live with you, he decided to stop taking his medication.
Yeah, he said he felt numb, he was putting on weight, he had no like motivation to do anything, and he wanted to do more with his life, and he felt like the gym was a better way to do that.
A good focus for him.
And he said it always told me it releases happy endorphins.
Yes.
He told me to go for a run.
Yes, he wanted you to run and
Yeah.
exercise with him. So, I want to check, in that 4 to 5 month period, or thereafter actually, what follow-up support, if any, did he have while he was living with you?
I don't remember any from the Surrey hospital. I might be wrong, but I don't remember any. I remember like some outpatient ones from his other, but they came once and he wasn't in, and I spoke to him, and then they didn't return anymore.
And he was 16, 17 at the time. Did you have any information when he was discharged to you in 2008 about who to contact or what to do if he should deteriorate or things were going wrong?
No, not that I remember, no.
Would you have known who to call or what to do?
Just police.
So Rocky made this decision to sort of, maybe I can put it in this way, come back to himself, because the medication was making him feel like not himself, and to put this focus on exercising and to go to the gym. And what you tell us is that actually for several years he seemed to get back on track.
Yeah.
And he was well, focusing on the gym, living with you. Was he fully back to himself, would you say, during that period?
Still, obviously, there was still the grief.
Yes.
And them moments that still had to come over. And more so, like, he'd have his days when he'd completely talk about just my dad and obviously what was missing in our life.
Yes.
And bits and pieces, yeah.
You tell us that when he turned 18, Rocky was arrested for something that had happened when he was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And after that long delay, when Rocky went to court for that matter, he was convicted and was sentenced as an adult to a custodial sentence.
Yeah, they didn't take into account that the offence happened while he was a child. They just sentenced him as they see him in front of them.
For that reason, there was an appeal in relation to his sentence, and it was later reduced on appeal. Mm-hmm. But it was nonetheless a 3.5-year custodial sentence.
Yeah.
Rocky served his sentence, as I understand it, at Rochester Prison. Mm-hmm. And the way that you describe it is that he just wanted to keep his head down and get through the time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. He'd done a bricklaying course. Any work that they threw at him he wanted to do in the canteen when you went to visit, he worked in there.
Yes.
I think he even went out, I think there's farms near it apparently, and he went out and was doing like strawberry picking and things like that.
Agricultural work.
Yeah.
So he was doing what he could just to be productive and get through the time.
Yeah, he just wanted to get out of there, yeah.
During that sentence, so he, as I understand it, he entered Rochester Prison in June 2010, and he was under the care at Rochester Prison of the mental health team, because when he entered prison, he was taking antipsychotic medication. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So had he restarted that at some stage? You told us he stopped it 4 or 5 months after being discharged from the hospital in Surrey, but he had restarted antipsychotic medication before he was sentenced, had he?
When he used to have little bouts of like feeling like depressed and everything, he'd go back to his medication to try and see if that was like the issue and try and solve it himself.
Yes.
And like I always try to give advice about taking medication and things because I know it's not going to solve anything, but sometimes it masks a little bit and helps you through the day.
Yes.
And he used to turn to it sometimes if it was getting really bad.
So he would come back to it to try and lift himself out of deteriorating. Yeah. So a little bit later, I think over the page, you tell us that during that prison sentence, the first time that Rocky saw a psychiatrist was in December 2010.
Yeah.
So do you know, between arriving at Rochester Prison in June 2010 and December 2010, what kind of mental health treatment or care he was receiving other than the medication?
I don't remember him telling me anything at all.
No.
I just always remember saying, "Are you taking your tablets?"
Yes.
And he'd say yes.
There was then an incident in October 2010 that you've told us about in some detail. You must tell me, please, if I'm summarising it wrongly. Essentially, his friends on the wing had had some sort of altercation with another group of inmates, and a number of the men who'd been involved in that were transferred to different prisons.
Yeah.
But Rocky was left, he was sort of in it by association, and he was left with one particular inmate who he was extremely concerned about.
Yeah, so there was like an altercation between groups. Rocky wasn't there at the time of it happening, but because he was friends with them, and then they separated everyone off to different wings and things, and they left just Rocky and this other person from the other group.
Yes.
And they got them into a room together and made them shake hands and say that nothing was going to happen and forget everything.
Yes.
And even got them to have a game of pool together to say it's all over and done with.
Yes.
And Rocky said to me, "It's not over." He said, I can feel it. I know he's going to do something." And I just said, "Come, just tell someone on the wing." And he said, I've been telling them, no one's listening. They're saying I'm being paranoid." And every time he'd ring me up saying, Krista, I'm worried he's going to jump me. I think he's going to jump me when I'm not looking. And I was like, no, just like keep your wits about you. Like, and he was right.
Yes.
One day, yeah.
I think, is this right? You were so concerned by what Rocky was saying to you that you too rang the prison to say extremely concerned about this other inmate.
Yeah.
You, in fact, were due to visit Rocky on the 7th of October 2010 and received a call the day before to say that the visit would go ahead, but that he had been transferred to another prison.
Yeah, late the evening before, like, I'd say 6 or 7 o'clock that evening, they called me and said, you've got a visit tomorrow of Rocky Stenning. It will not be at Rochester, it'll be at Elmley Prison.
Yes.
And straight away I was like, something's happened, what's happened? Tell me what's happened. And they was like, nothing to concern you, it's fine, your visit will still go ahead. I said, my brother would not have been moved if something hadn't happened, I need to know.
Yes.
And they was like, no, absolutely fine, everything's just going ahead. And I said, I need to know, my child and my sister's child is coming with us.
Yes.
Absolutely fine, just bring your ID and you'll be seen as normal.
So you had the strong sense that there was a problem. You were told absolutely not. You even identified that you would be bringing small children. So could we please know if there's a problem? And you were told all is well. Yeah. In fact, I'm looking, Crystal, at page 5 of your witness statement and paragraph 34. Your fears were confirmed because when you saw Rocky, he was so badly injured with burns that both you and your sister screamed and the children with you were frightened and crying.
They couldn't recognise him.
He explained that he had been attacked by the other inmate we've just been describing with boiling water and transferred for that reason. You tell us that he was then given emergency treatment because he'd suffered burns to his face, chest, neck and so on.
Right up to there.
Was that treatment before he arrived at Elmley or afterwards?
He was taken to hospital, I think, first,
I see.
and then brought to Elmley Prison.
Yes. That attack is the second event that you identify as having a major and devastating impact on him. Tell us how it impacted him. What were the changes to him after it?
It just confirmed everything that he was ever thinking, all the paranoid, well, we say paranoid, but it wasn't, his heightened awareness, isn't it? And every time someone told him he was paranoid, he wasn't. He knew something was going to happen, so it just made everything correct, what he was thinking. So then every time he thought bad, he thought that was going to happen.
So it confirmed other fears that he held that had been being dismissed as paranoia, because on that occasion he had been quite right.
Yeah.
When Rocky was seen by a prison psychiatrist in December 2010, that psychiatrist considered that Rocky might be suffering PTSD symptoms related to that assault. Yeah. And at that time, Rocky was referred to a clinical psychologist. And you tell us that he began to attend sessions with a clinical psychologist in April 2011.
Yeah.
Is this right? And you must tell me, it might not be right, but, well, in fact, I'll just ask. That kind of psychological treatment, so talking therapy or psychological therapy, is that the only time in Rocky's life that was offered to him in Rochester Prison?
As far as I'm aware. And I feel like it was only sparked off because obviously that happened to me in that prison.
Yes.
I was given a direct number to the governor of the prison.
Yes.
Because I feel like they failed him and they was just giving me whatever I wanted, so I had a direct number straight to the prison.
Had you requested that he have therapy?
Not to the prison, I didn't.
No. So there was no other, because we're going to come to the other inpatient admissions and other periods of Rocky's life when he was plainly not just struggling but suffering from psychotic symptoms. As far as you are aware, the only period of his life during which he attended or was offered talking therapy or some sort of therapeutic care that is not medication was during this period at Rochester Prison.
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
I'm stating the obvious really in asking this question, but do you consider that there were other periods of Rocky's life when he would have been helped by
Yeah.
talking therapy?
I feel like when my dad passed, absolutely, he should have. I know he might not have stuck to it, he might not, like I didn't stay with the bereavement counselling, but he should have had a chance to do that. He should have. And I understand with trauma, if you talk about something straight away, it
Yes.
doesn't become a trauma because you've dealt with it.
Yes.
He didn't deal with anything.
He wasn't given the opportunity to do so.
No, he wasn't given the tools, no.
Thank you. You tell us that he seemed to progress well with his treatment at the prison, and that feeds into what you're saying, that there were other periods when actually that might have offered him a different and better opportunity to deal with grief and past trauma.
Yeah.
As I understand it, when Rocky was released, he couldn't come to you because of his conditions of release, although you wanted him to,
Yeah.
and so was first released to a hostel, essentially,
Yeah.
not a bail hostel, I'm sorry.
No, I think it was a bail hostel, yeah.
And that wasn't appropriate for him at all, as far as you could see. Why was that, Crystal?
It just seemed like he was coming from one, like, institute to another, really.
Yes.
Because then he was timed in and out of there and locked in a room, and there was people there that was violent as well, and all different backgrounds and things. I don't think for his own mental health he needed to be around them people.
Yes. And he was still young.
Yeah, it was, and it was right near Christmas as well, which is obviously a very hard, I know it's a hard time for people anyway, but for us, it's my dad's birthday, Christmas Day,
I see.
and he still couldn't even be at home with his family then.
No.
Like, we sat in the car on Christmas Day so he wasn't alone.
You sat in a car together.
Yeah, we sat in the car park of the hostel.
One of the things you say is that he soon after being there became quite depressed.
Very depressed,
He
yeah.
was in the company of older offenders and people who'd committed more serious offences.
Yeah.
And you felt you wanted desperately for him to be home so that you could take care of him, but felt powerless to help.
Yeah.
Eventually, I think you did speak to probation, and he was allowed to come back and live with you.
Eventually he was allowed to come and live at my address, and he was allowed to walk out of my front gate, and he was given a route. He was allowed to walk down a road and down another road. That's the only place he was allowed to go, into a road.
So he was confined to the road, basically.
Yeah, but we didn't care because at least he was at home with us.
Then you could look after him.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand. During that period, so 2012 and sort of the first half of 2013, because I understand that things began to deteriorate again in the summer of 2013. But tell us how he was in 2012 and 2013, the early part.
He was happy, Rocky. Yeah, he lived with us. I was pregnant. Was going through a tough time with my son, but Rocky was there, like supportive as always, making us all laugh, taking the mick out of me, of course, because I was getting fat. And yeah, he seemed happy and settled.
Yes. At the time, as far as you know, was he taking antipsychotic medication?
I don't think he was then.
In the summer of 2013, you saw some really significant changes in his mood and behaviour. And it appeared to you that he might be smoking cannabis again.
Yeah,
You say that his mood plummeted.
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you observed then?
He was living with me up until my little girl was 1,
Yes.
just past 1, because he had his own room then. And then once my daughter had to go into her bedroom, he could sleep on the settee, but it wasn't no privacy for him.
Yes.
So he'd often go back to my mum's, even if it was for a night or 2 nights and things. And then that's when we all started to worry, because we'd think he's going to start smoking again. And then
Yes.
as soon as he starts smoking, we then always think that something's going to happen.
Yes.
Because where they told us that's why, every time I thought about cannabis, I thought, he's going to end up in hospital.
Yes. And on this occasion, that is what happened. What you saw is that he began to talk about ideas of God and love and started to behave erratically.
Yeah, we've never been like a religious family or anything. We've never been like against anything or anything like that, but we don't speak like things like that. But he was like, he'd come round and he was like lean over me so closely and like, yeah, but you know, like, and talk really fast and like be sweating and say, you know how much I love you and you've got to tell everyone you love them. Make sure you express how much you love them and God is good and God is here and yeah, very frantic and didn't sleep for days and
yes,
or eat.
Didn't eat either, did you say? We know that by coming towards the end of August 2014, Rocky was found in a neighbour's house, jumping up and down on the bed and talking about demons and behaving in an obviously very erratic way, which led to police attending and sectioning him under Section 136. And I think you tell us that at the time of his arrest, both you and your sister were keen for him to be sectioned because it was so clear to you that he was very unwell.
Oh, it was horrendous watching him. Me and my sister was absolutely in bits. We've got like an alleyway down our home where we all grew up, and the neighbours here who he went into have been there our whole life, and to see him screaming and shouting, he had no top on, he was just, it just wasn't there, his eyes was glassy. And
yes, it was not him.
No, it wasn't there at all.
When he was assessed, he was taken to Rochford Hospital in Southend and was assessed for admission under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act. And Crystal, you've set it out in your witness statement. I'm looking at page 7 and paragraph 46. You've been able now to see the assessment record, and we don't need to read all of it, but what it tells us is that he denied any previous psychiatric history. He denied the events that police had witnessed and had arrested him for. He denied any drug use, and that he was very resistant to any suggestion that he might go into hospital, into psychiatric care voluntarily.
Yeah.
The assessing clinician recorded that at the time of the assessment, he was very unpredictable in terms of his behaviour.
Yeah.
And that although he was not an inherently violent individual, because of his mental state at the time, he was a risk.
Yeah.
And I think, is this fair? You would have agreed with that assessment?
Absolutely. He'd literally run over 2 moving cars and was oblivious to it. Didn't hurt him, didn't touch him.
Yes. Now, we know that he was then detained under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act, but after one night of admission, and this was at Southend, he escaped.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about how that happened? He jumped a wall, as I understand it.
Yeah. I just cannot believe it happened. It was literally, I think probably about 3 o'clock in the morning, we'd finally just all like settled and got everything sort of back. And
Yes.
I was supposed to go to work the next day, and I still got up to go. And I was on my way there, and my sister rang and said, Rocky's in Mum's front room. He walked out the front of the hospital, and as you do, someone drove past who he knew, and they thought he was on a night out, and they offered him a lift home.
And he went back to your mum's.
Yeah.
As far as you are aware, Crystal, before he arrived at your mum's address, had there been any contact from the ward to say he's missing?
Nope. As far as I'm aware, I don't think even anyone followed him out of the hospital.
No. Police were sent to locate him, and we know that as a result of that, he was then readmitted under section, but this time to the psychiatric intensive care unit at Basildon, Hadley Ward.
Yeah.
And that was on the 4th of September 2014. On admission, you know from the records that he was noted as being very aggressive in the beginning, but then quiet. And he stayed there for about a month. Again, you tell us that he was prescribed antipsychotic medication while he was on Hadley Ward. And you tell us that you tried to visit him there as much as possible.
Yeah.
So this is his sort of second period of inpatient admission, and we're in September, October 2014. Can you remember how regularly you were able to see him on Hadley Ward?
There were set times for visiting on Hadley Ward.
Yes.
I would say, first of all, he wouldn't. On the first attempt, I was allowed to go and visit him.
Yes.
So we would go every day, and it's all secure, obviously, and they let you in and lock you in a little room.
Yes.
Which was very, very scary. You're locked in there with other patients as well, and if they've got family members with them.
Yes.
And staff.
Locked into the visiting room.
Yeah.
You tell us, I'm looking at page 8 and paragraph 51 of your witness statement, that, as you've said, there were locked doors everywhere. And you say, I will never forget the smell of the ward.
No.
Tell us about that.
Just had this distinct smell. And as soon as I smell it now, I can still remember being back there.
It has stayed with you.
Mm.
You recall on Hadley Ward seeing staff sleeping sometimes while you were visiting.
Yeah.
Was that only on this inpatient admission or throughout? Because we know that Rocky came back to Hadley Ward.
Throughout. They'd
Throughout.
literally, you'd turn round and they'd be asleep in their chair.
One of the things you tell us is that during the stay we're discussing on Hadley Ward, professionals considered that Rocky was suffering from drug-induced psychosis,
Yeah.
as you and I have touched on. But you didn't know that that's what they considered at the time.
No.
You know that from having looked back at records.
I remember going into a meeting and them saying, because I said, I questioned the 28 days because I never could understand. And then one of the nurses, one of the nice nurses, well, there was one that we really connected with, and he said, it's 28 days for cannabis to come out of your system. So that's why they sectioned them for 28 days, so
Yes.
they can assess them after all of the drugs are out of their body.
Yes. In fact, he was discharged on the 1st of October 2014, so he wasn't there even for a month.
No.
Can you tell us a little, you've told us and you explain in your witness statement there was one particular nurse who you consider really cared for Rocky,
Yeah.
established a relationship with him and took care of him. What about what you observed of other staff? What do you recollect? What was your impression?
They was very rude. You couldn't approach them, wasn't very approachable, just dismissed you. I felt like they treated us as if we was inpatients ourselves and we didn't know what we was talking about, when in fact they couldn't understand most of what we were saying to them anyway.
So you and others in your family tried to interact with staff and ask questions about Rocky's treatment. Was any information volunteered to you? Were there any staff who said to you, here's the plan, here's what we're doing?
That one nice nurse, he'd always tell me everything, and like he was the one who suggested to me when Rocky was released, remember, if you see any signs at all, get him help as soon as possible, because the quicker you get him help, the more of your brother you will save.
Yes. Is that the same member of staff who explained to you that each episode of psychosis would
You
take
lose
a
bit
little...
more.
Say that again.
You lose a little bit more of you, and the longer it goes on without medical help, it will maybe never come back to him again.
Did anyone, either during this inpatient stay that Rocky had at Hadley Ward or any other, come to you or to your sister and say, tell us about him? Tell us about the background to his life and what might have led to this. Did anyone ask you to input and give you the context of your brother's life? Give them, the context of your brother's life?
That same nurse would just talk to Rocky randomly about his life, and he'd tell him all about things. He tried to get him to visit the gym in Hadley Ward. They was allowed to take him down, and that I don't think that happened, but he was telling him that was going to happen, and he was going to get that to happen.
Yes.
When we'd go on, when you'd ask some of the staff things, they'd just say, wait till ward round, so sort of just palm you off. And on the ward round, if we'd go to their meetings, which me and my sister always went, like one of us or both.
I'm so sorry, did you say, it's a little bit difficult to hear you sometimes, your voice just drops slightly. So either you or your sister would always try and be present at the ward round?
Yeah, so that's when, I think that was a weekly thing.
Yes.
Where you'd go into the room and the psychiatrist would be there.
Yes.
And early stages of the visit, Rocky would prep us. Make sure you tell them this, make sure you tell them that, make sure you do... and my sister would go along with it as much as she could because she wouldn't want to upset him, whereas with me, I'd just go with what I think's right.
Now help me, what is it that Rocky wanted you and your sister to say?
That he was fine.
Yes.
Get me out of here, I'm fine. I don't belong in here.
And you were not always prepared to go along with that?
No.
Because what you wanted, is this right, is for the right clinical decisions to be made that would help him. Do you consider, Crystal, that Rocky became good at saying the right things?
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about what you saw of that.
I feel, and I'm sure my sister feels, that he masked a lot of his, he would say he was okay, and you would actually think he is, because he would be out and partying, and you'd look and think, wow, look at him. And then the next day or days later, he would absolutely be in bits.
Yes.
And the same as when you'd go on a ward round, he would be sitting there anxiously, fiddling with his hands and everything, but he'd be telling them that he's fine.
Yes.
All I need to do now is get home. I just need to go home and have a good sleep. That'll be fine. I'll be fine. And that's all he'd say. And I'd say to him, just open up and tell them exactly how you feel so you can get some help. And he'd just say, no, I just need to get out of here.
He didn't want to be there?
Not there, no.
No. After having been on Hadley Ward for some time, Rocky was transferred to the non-secure ward, I think Grangewater. Mm-hmm. And that's a non-secure, or it isn't the intensive care unit. I think, is this right? There you visited daily, we're still in 2014, and it was a slightly freer and more pleasant environment.
On the ward, it wasn't more pleasant.
It wasn't?
No.
Tell me.
It's very more free-flowing, like there's patients walking in and out of everywhere. You can walk around with them. They're very unpredictable as well, obviously, because they've got their own issues.
Yes.
And by this time, with Rocky coming down to that ward, he wasn't in another world, if you know what I mean. He was back to him,
yes,
but depressed him.
Yes.
Whereas before he'd come round, he would be all these people's best friends, and he'd be jumping up and down, and they're not his people. And once he come to terms with where he was, he didn't want to be there and be around these people anymore, and he couldn't stand them looking at us, touching us, going near us. So we'd come out of there and take him to the canteen, because he was allowed to walk along the corridor and go into the canteen, and that's where we'd go, and it was a bit better there.
I understand that on the 1st of October 2014, Rocky was discharged, and you tell us in your witness statement that the plan was for the crisis resolution and home treatment team to put in place follow-up care for him when he was discharged to you. And you tell us that the medical records note that he was supposed to have that provision of support from the home treatment team for 3 to 6 months to keep an eye on him and essentially to look out for relapse. that's what you've learnt from the records. Could you tell me what information, if any, were you given in the lead up to his discharge? What discussions, if any, were you involved in about what his discharge plan was and what it would look like?
They just wanted to know where he would be living, obviously because he was homeless, so he just lived between our homes, and that someone will follow up with outpatient appointments. If I ever become concerned,
Yes.
I would be able to ring outreach and someone would come out. But I did ring outreach and no one would come out. They told me to ring the police or ambulance.
So when Rocky was still on the ward and before his discharge, you were told, here's how it works. If you're concerned, you'll ring outreach and someone will come.
This was more than likely on the last day, as when I'll be picking him up, I was told this.
I see.
Yeah.
And then in the event, he came home to you, stopped taking his medication,
Yeah.
and you made a number of attempts to do exactly that, to call as you'd been told to. And as I understand it, staff you spoke to said, no, that's not how it works.
No. It's literally, I'm sure that he was supposed to be given a caseworker or something, and
Yes.
it never happened. So I had to, obviously go back to ringing police or ambulance.
Yes.
And they didn't take me seriously anyway.
No. You say that although there were some attempts made by that team to see Rocky, they were not sustained or consistent. And you say here those attempts certainly did not last 3 to 6 months.
No.
In fact, I think the first that Rocky did see someone from the crisis team was on the 16th of October 2014. And then there was a call from the team. But is this right? You would call and then they would say, well, we've got to speak to him. And then unless he called or happened to be in when someone came, there was nothing else.
Yeah. And he was always worried if he spoke to them and actually told them how he was feeling, that they'd section him again.
I see. Did he tell you that he was
Yeah.
concerned about that? So what we see here from your witness statement is that on the 29th of October, which is only 29 days after his discharge, someone from the team spoke to you to ensure that everything was in place to transfer Rocky's case, but they didn't know where to, and neither did you.
No.
Did that make any sense to you, Crystal?
No, I didn't know what they was going on about.
And then you were told that, it says here, I'm looking at paragraph 59 of your witness statement on page 9, as they were not able to speak with Rocky, the plan was to write him a letter asking him to contact them. And if there was no response in 7 days, his case with the crisis resolution and home treatment team would be closed on the 4th of November 2014.
Yeah.
So that's what you were told. As far as you are aware, was there any alternative plan or, for example, any safeguards in place for a vulnerable person who might not manage to engage within the 7 days?
No. That's what I don't understand. He was very vulnerable, obviously avoided any sort of contact with official people.
Yes.
There should have been more, they should have been pushing it more or offering more. If something doesn't work for one person, try something else.
Had you informed anyone that he had stopped his medication at that time?
Not at that time, I don't think.
You say here, I would call both the crisis outreach team, who were meant to come to the house when we needed them, and you would contact the Hadley ward for help.
Yeah.
And you were told that as long as Rocky wasn't hurting anyone, he was okay.
As long as you don't hurt yourself or anyone else, then he's fine. And I would re-go over exactly what the nurse told me. He's not right, I need to get him help. I need someone to come and help him now.
In November 2014, Rocky made another attempt to take his life. Again, unsuccessful, and again, it was Rocky that told you about it. And you tell us that you made sure to keep an even closer eye on him. As far as you know, did he speak to anyone about that? Did he tell anyone outside the family that that had occurred?
Probably not. He was probably too scared because he was always worried that they would just section him. I remember him sitting there eating dinner and I just kept looking and seeing the marks on his neck.
Thank you. Crystal, I want to come on to one of the major issues that Rocky faced whenever he was discharged from inpatient stays, which was to do with housing.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you've explained is that although your brother was never street homeless, because one of you would always take him in, he needed his own stable housing.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at page 10 and paragraph 62. I understand that in late December 2014, you went with him to an assessment with a social worker from the local authority. And you tried essentially to get him some housing or some help for housing without success.
Mm.
Do you know, could you tell us a little bit about the effect on him that you saw of not having stable housing?
He literally felt like he belonged nowhere. Him and my mum wasn't getting on, so he couldn't just relax at home.
Yes.
I'd had a new baby, so there wasn't room for him there. He said no one needed him, no one had room, like my sister had her children.
Yes.
He felt like he was a burden on both of us, and yeah, just felt like worthless.
That was one of the reasons I think that ran on into 2015, despite your efforts and his to get him housed or to have some support with housing, to give him some stability and a sense of settledness and privacy. Those efforts were unsuccessful, and as far as you know, he again turned to cannabis to try and block out his problems and all that was happening.
Yeah.
By October 2015, his mood and his mental state had deteriorated again very badly. And you tell us that on the 9th of October, you called 999 because you knew him to be very seriously unwell.
Yep.
He was very paranoid and seemed to you by that stage to be hallucinating. Is that right?
When he thought he could see my dad.
Yes, if you look, let me take you to it because I'm sorry, I'm speaking a bit too generally. If you look, Crystal, at page 10 of your witness statement and paragraph 64.
Yeah.
So these are the events that come just before Rocky's third admission.
Yeah.
And what you say is that he said that he was seeing demons in your mum.
Yeah.
And I think there's some suggestion later that he was trying to hold her down. He was hallucinating.
Yeah, and he kept seeing things and he wanted to cut them out of himself, and he said my dad was inside of him and telling him what to do, and yeah.
On that occasion, the family having called emergency services, police and paramedics attended, but didn't section him.
No.
And went away again, leaving you all with him in that state.
Mm-hmm.
You then took yourself to the GP.
I took myself to the GP that used to be our GP when we was children.
Yes.
It was no longer our GP, but I remember he used to help us, so
Yes.
I just walked straight in there, and I was in some sort of state, and he spoke to me and tried to ring up people and get me some help.
The GP tried to ring up and get some help, but I think in the end the GP told you that he was sort of prevented from making a referral because he himself, the GP, needed to see Rocky.
Yeah.
And of course, your point was that the state Rocky was in meant that you were not going to get him in front of a GP.
He didn't think anything was wrong with him.
Right. So if we look, please, at the top of page 11, eventually police did attend and did detain him, again under section 136, because by that time Rocky was in the middle of a busy road, stopping traffic and not allowing vehicles to pass, and sort of preaching and telling people to pray.
Mm-hmm.
When Rocky was assessed at Rochford Hospital that day, very late in the evening, so 11:45, we again see a record where Rocky gives an account of being well, having no presenting problems, and he denied not taking his medication. He went on to say to the assessing clinician that he had no idea why he was being detained, and that you, his sister, had made the referral because you had misconstrued his happiness as mental illness.
Yeah, he always thought I didn't like to see him happy, so I'd ring the police on him, he said.
Yes.
That's why I wasn't allowed to visit him at the first.
The assessing clinician at the section 136 suite on this occasion was able to see beyond what Rocky was saying, that he was not well. Also, obviously, had the evidence of police who detained him in the road, and decided that he was placing both himself and potentially others at risk, and detained him again under section 2. That was another occasion where it appears very clearly recorded, and it's what you're telling us, that by that stage, Rocky had deteriorated to a point where it appears that he had no insight whatsoever into how severely unwell he was.
No control, no nothing, no.
Yes.
Whereas when you first start seeing little inklings, I remember even trying to put his medication in tea, because I thought if he gets his medication in him, it will stop whatever's going to be happening.
Yes.
But if it goes so far, there's no.
You, as a family, became fairly expert at spotting when there were little inklings, as you've described them.
Yeah.
But what you've described to us is not being able to convince police or clinicians to take action until, in fact, it was almost too late.
Yeah.
On this occasion, so we're in October 2015, Rocky was again sectioned and admitted to Hadley Ward at Basildon until he improved and was transferred again to Grangewater, which was the non-secure ward. And again, we see here, I'm looking, Crystal, at page 12 and paragraph 68, the records document his final diagnosis as psychotic illness, most likely substance-induced. Now, you told us that on the previous admission at Hadley, you had attended a meeting where this was discussed. What about this time? You say that you visited him as before. Tell us what you knew or were told about a diagnosis.
The word bipolar was mentioned, but it was never told to him or told to us or medicated or anything in paper.
Yes.
On paper, and it was just like a passing comment sort of thing. So it wasn't until the last ever doctor's round before he went to court that they said that he had bipolar, which I was like, why has this never been mentioned? Why have you never told us this before?
Yes.
They had no answers for it, but this was the doctor who we'd never ever seen before, and he didn't know Rocky or anything, so I don't...
In October 2015?
No, the last ever one mentioned the bipolar one. I don't think that was just in passing comments, but they always said it was drug-induced psychosis.
Yes.
But bipolar was just like a comment. It was never, ever diagnosed.
Yes, I think it was finally more firmly given as a diagnosis, but not until April 2018.
Yeah,
and we see from the records, which we're going to come to, that the first mention of it, I think, comes in around December 2015. But you didn't know that at the time.
No.
Nobody mentioned bipolar disorder or that possibility to you. Your overriding impression was that all of this was put down to drug-induced psychosis.
We did used to say, like, surely there must be something, like depression has come from somewhere, like we all suffer from depression because of our life and what happened with my dad and things. And they just used to put it down to cannabis.
Yes. When Rocky was discharged from this inpatient stay, which came on the 10th of November 2015, you tell us in your witness statement that you remember attending that discharge meeting. And you don't remember, of course, understandably, all the specifics of what was discussed, but you do know, having looked back over the discharge summary, that there were some concerns about the risk to him in discharging him at that time to your mother's address. So there was due to be some follow-up in the community with a care coordinator. And as I understand it, in fact, Rocky was not discharged to your mother's house in November 2015, but to you. What follow-up do you recall there being after November 2015 when Rocky was discharged to you?
I don't remember any.
You don't remember any?
No, every time he came out, there's only one time I remember somebody coming out to see him, and that's it.
Yes.
And they didn't carry it on. Like, there would be a letter that would come and say, if you're not in touch by this time, you're discharged, and then that's
And then
it.
that was it?
Yeah.
Crystal, did you ever see, given the discharge summary, and if you want to see it, Crystal, I'm looking at page 13 and paragraph 71, given that that refers to Rocky's care coordinator following up in the community, did you meet a care coordinator for Rocky?
Not as far as I'm aware, no. The only person I remember, we was on Hadley Ward one day before he was getting taken to Grange Waters, and someone came and said that someone from housing will ring you and arrange something.
Yes.
And then they told us who it was. We wrote the name down, but no one ever rang. That's the only personal thing.
One of the things that we do see from the records happened is that on the 1st of December 2015, having been discharged to your home, Rocky was seen by a psychiatrist in an outpatient clinic, and you've set out in your witness statement what's recorded from that review. And again, we see recent manic episode with psychotic features precipitated by cannabis misuse. But there, Crystal, at the bottom of that paragraph is the first mention that you have seen of bipolar disorder. There might be higher susceptibility to developing bipolar disorder, so it couldn't be excluded at that point. But as you've explained, you were not aware of that mention at the time. After that appointment in December 2015, Rocky did not see anyone until April, the 18th of April 2016, I think. You tell us that on page 14 at paragraph 74. Could you have a look at that paragraph, please, Crystal, because there's something else I wanted to ask you about there. You tell us that the psychiatrist who Rocky had seen in an outpatient clinic wrote a letter dated the 19th of April 2016, and that the letter says that a carer's assessment would be requested for you.
Yeah, that was, they mentioned something, and I didn't understand what that was about really, because I don't really know why they was doing a carer's assessment for me.
Well, it might have been something that was suggested in order to look at how you were set up to support him following discharge.
I think they asked me how I was coping with what was happening
Yes.
around me and like seeing what happens to Rocky, and I just said, I'm fine. I just like.
Who asked you that?
There was somebody on the phone called up just to say, how do you deal with these things? But I don't know
Yes.
where it came from, to tell you the truth.
Yes.
At one point they suggested that I should work in mental health.
Who suggested that to you?
A nurse on the phone.
Crystal, thank you. I'm aware that we've been going for about an hour and 15 minutes, and I've got some ground still to cover and some other things to ask you. So if you were happy, and as long as, Chair, you are content, I was going to suggest that we take a short break, perhaps of around 10 or 15 minutes now.
Can I just ask about this latest discharge we've just been talking about? Were you aware of anyone who was meant to be seeing him in the community? He wasn't seen until April, as Ms. Troopers
Just
pointed
the outreach team always said that someone would come out to see him.
out. But they didn't?
No.
Thank you.
Thank
10
you.
minutes.
Chair, thank you. Crystal, we were talking about Rocky's discharge following his third inpatient stay and him coming back to you in late 2015. That's where we were. And you tell us a little there about, first of all, that this was the first mention we see in the records of a potential diagnosis of bipolar disorder. But you also tell us about how Rocky was following his discharge at that time, and that during 2016, for the most part, he made enormous efforts to be well. He trained regularly at the gym. He began a relationship that became serious with a girlfriend, and he tried, the way that you put it is, Rocky would try and stay on his medication and try and make something of himself.
Yeah. You got yourself a job as well.
He what, sorry?
He got yourself a job. He was working in Tilbury Docks, and
Yes.
he was really enjoying that. Yeah.
Yes. You say here, and I think this is what we've identified as having become something of a pattern, then things would start to slip and he would slowly stop taking his medication, and he would become very depressed.
Yeah.
I think in that period, you tell us that the low periods that he did have, he would end up talking about your father and about wanting to be with him.
Yeah.
We then come to, in very late 2017, in December, a very short admission, again to Basildon. And you tell us that this came about, Crystal, I'm looking at page 15 and paragraph 79, that he was under a great deal of stress because in late 2016, he was arrested for an offence that was said to have taken place in September 2016, and knew that he was facing trial or criminal proceedings. And by the 4th of December, you were concerned enough that you called the community healthcare team to ask for help and were referred to either the crisis team or A&E or the police. Those were the suggestions that were made.
Yes.
And then, as I understand it, Rocky was admitted via Basildon A&E on the 6th of December 2017, but was discharged again on the 8th. So it was just a 2-day admission.
This was where Rocky actually did ask for help.
Yes.
He took himself to the hospital and expressed to them how he was feeling, how he didn't want to be here no more.
Yes.
And they left him waiting in a waiting room. And then as time went on, obviously he was getting more agitated and then became angry, and they told him to leave.
Because he was becoming agitated?
Yeah.
Were you with him at the time?
No, I'm sure his girlfriend went with him that time.
Yes. During the period that he'd been living with you, he had been training regularly at the gym, and you said he was training to become a cage fighter.
Yeah.
And you tell us that in March 2018 he had his first fight.
He had a fight in March. I don't know if that was his first fight, in March 2018.
If you take a look, I take it from, it's page 15 in paragraph 83 of your witness statement. And you say he had his first amateur fight in March 2018, that he was amazing and won the fight very swiftly, but that the adrenaline rush from it brought on an episode of psychosis.
Because I didn't realise that something like that could happen, but apparently quite extreme highs in adrenaline and thing can tip you to have a manic episode, as well as obviously really low episodes.
Yes. So you were not aware of that then. As far as you know, was Rocky aware that that was a possibility,
No.
that a rush of adrenaline could
No.
cause that tipping?
No, not that I was aware of. No, he never. None of us ever spoke and thought that that could happen. We just obviously would have been thinking that he's so high because he's won that fight in like 3 seconds.
Yes. By the 26th of March 2018, you and your sister were concerned enough that your sister contacted RAID, and Rocky was, again, I think the way you describe it appears to have been at that time psychotic. He was saying that your father was inside him, asking your mum to take his dad out of his body, and had begun to behave aggressively.
Yeah.
So when the mental health team came out, because of that, they decided to come back with police. Yes?
Yeah.
When Rocky was first taken to Basildon, he was detained under Section 3 and went back to Hadley, which was the intensive care unit. And actually at that time his behaviour was so erratic, as I understand it, that he was nursed in seclusion for 4 days.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to see or speak to him.
For 7 days?
Yeah.
So you describe it, in fact, as the longest 7 days of your life.
We didn't know if he, like, on his other admissions, he would be on the phone or we'd visit him every single day.
Yes.
And it was probably like, no exaggeration, he'd probably ring you 10 times a day because he was so erratic. He'd just want to speak to you or tell you something. He'd put the phone down, he'd remember something else, he'd ring you back. He'd ring you and be aggressive, he'd ring you back and be sorry, he'd ring you back. It was so... But at least we had contact. When the contact was taken away, it was left in our thoughts thinking, what is happening, what has happened, what's he doing, what are they doing? And there was no contact from him at all. Every time we rang, they said, he's still in the room of like an inclusion room thing.
So you didn't receive any contact from the ward, but when you would ring the ward during that 7-day period, did they give you updates as to how he was doing?
Just that he was still in there.
One of the factors that you consider was contributed in a major way to the build-up of anxiety and stress, and him being sectioned, was the upcoming court case. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And as far as you are aware, because this is a longer admission, he was at Basildon between March and the 10th of July 2018, were those caring for him on Hadley Ward made aware of those upcoming criminal proceedings?
The nurse that obviously had the very good relationship with Rocky was, and he was working for it, he talked to him about things.
Yes.
No others really took any interest in anything like that with him.
Yes.
I know the psychiatrist was aware, and we would have like the weekly meet and speak to him, and he
said to Rocky, "You're not fit for court. You need to just try and think of your health and us getting you better, not worry about anything else."
So the psychiatrist on Hadley ward said, and you were present, to Rocky that he was not fit for court.
Yeah.
But in April 2018, you tell us, and Crystal, it's at the very end of paragraph 87 on page 16, that Rocky was finally diagnosed with bipolar disorder and thereafter moved to Grangewater. And what you tell us is that there, a new psychiatrist
Yeah.
was responsible for Rocky's care and assessed Rocky and
fit.
decided that he was fit to go to court.
This is the appointment that I was trying to get parked in the car park, and I was frantically trying to get to it.
Yes.
And they said they was going to try and keep the psychiatrist there for me to speak to
Yes.
him. And no, he didn't wait for me, but they said that he said Rocky's fit for court. And I wanted to obviously question him about that. And
Yes.
there was no...
And presumably you would have wanted to input into that, or give some background about what you had seen of the
Yeah.
stress building up, and also possibly talk to that new psychiatrist or new to Rocky
Yeah.
about what the treating psychiatrist
That's
on
right,
Hadley
yeah.
ward had said.
It was so contradictive, like one was telling him one thing
Yes.
and he was calming and trying to get his head around, right, what do I need to do now to get myself better? And then he'd come down to this one, and that one had then chucked him into this big whirlwind of thinking, you are going to court, you're dealing with this now.
Yes.
And he just didn't know what to do with himself.
Yes. In fact, we'll see it later, but one of the matters that was noted in the root cause analysis report much later and after Rocky had died is that there was no evidence that his concerns about receiving a custodial sentence, receiving a prison sentence, or the impact of that on his mental health were addressed in his care plan or his risk assessments in the whole of that period at Basildon. You knew, and your family knew, that going to court was likely to trigger another acute episode,
Yeah.
and tried, I think, to talk to his criminal solicitors about that without success. By that stage, as you tell us in your witness statement, you tried to get Rocky to change solicitors, but he actually just wouldn't even talk to you about it.
No, he was just like, please don't stress me out anymore. Just leave it as it is. Like, please don't stress me out anymore.
One of the things that you say there is all he would do was sleep, and he had lost all hope.
He was allowed like to come home sometimes, and we'd pick him up and he'd come home and I'd find him in the garden, like asleep, like him and his girlfriend just both asleep on the chairs in the garden. Then he'd be in the front room asleep, upstairs, everywhere. You'd just find him sleeping.
Yes. You tell us that he slept and his nails were bitten down to nothing.
Yeah.
You describe him as he was like a little boy by that time. Rocky was found guilty by a jury and went back, as I understand it, to court to be sentenced on the 10th of July 2018. He went straight to court from Basildon Hospital with a nurse.
With him. Yeah, the nurse went to trial with him every day.
Yes. He received a 9-year sentence and was taken straight from the dock in the Crown Court to Chelmsford Prison. And the way that you describe that is that it was so abrupt and extreme. He had been monitored and cared for at Basildon, and he was suddenly moved into a very different setting indeed.
Yeah.
I want to come on to talk about what happened, because of course he was only at Chelmsford Prison for 9 days. And if we can talk first about what you have learned about the transfer and what took place. One of the things you set out for us very helpfully is that when a person is transferred from court to custody or to prison, they carry with them a sort of passport, the PER, which should record any important information about that person, including health information and mental health.
Yeah.
what you tell us, looking at page 18 in paragraph 95, is that Rocky's noted that he was bipolar and that he was vulnerable due to mental health issues and coming to court from the mental health unit at Basildon. You also tell us that the pre-sentence psychiatric report that had been completed was attached, and that it warned that he would find the confinement of prison difficult. In fact, the words that you use here are too much to bear,
Yeah.
and that there was a chance he may become more depressed in that setting. You also note in paragraph 96 that what that psychiatrist noted in his pre-sentence report is as follows: it is important that the mental health support available within the prison setting be, it says altered, I think it means to say alerted about his vulnerability, and that he be monitored, and that appropriate help is sought as and when needed. And what you now know is that despite that warning, when he did arrive at prison, neither the prison staff nor EPUT, who were providing mental health services inside Chelmsford Prison at the time, implemented the, suicide and self-harm monitoring measures.
Yeah. They, apparently there's like a checklist when you come into prison.
Yes.
So, for example, if someone gets a long sentence, there should be a tick. If someone's come from mental health background or self-harm background, there should be a tick.
Yes.
Vulnerable, tick. All the things that Rocky had was ticks, but they didn't tick any of them for an act to be open on Rocky.
No.
And also didn't give him no medication. Either way was there.
No. So he, in fact, didn't get his medication until some days later, because he was at the time, when he left the mental health unit at Basildon, taking antipsychotic medication. He was transferred to Chelmsford with a prescription for that medication, but with no actual medication. You tell us that the screening nurse, when he was admitted to Chelmsford Prison, recorded that he was paranoid and that he had said he wanted a single cell, and referred him for a mental health assessment, but noted that there were no concerns about suicide.
No, in the inquest, I remember him saying he just looked like a normal, well-presented young man.
Yes. And your point is, I think, that how he looked
has nothing to do with it. So if he would have gone there with dirty clothes on maybe, and like maybe dirt around his face maybe, or something like that, would they have opened an act on him?
Yes.
Does it matter what you look like? Because you can see a broken leg, you can't see a broken mind.
Yes. Another officer carrying out there's a standard induction process for the first night that someone is admitted to prison and serving a sentence. And although Rocky disclosed to that officer that he had made a previous suicide attempt, that officer too recorded no immediate concerns. In addition, despite the fact that he had come straight to Chelmsford Prison from hospital, from a mental health unit, he was not only not placed on a healthcare wing, but also he was not placed on an induction wing, which is where we might expect a prisoner to go for the first night or few days or few weeks. Instead, he was placed on E-wing, which was a drug treatment wing.
Yeah.
Did you know any of this at the time, Crystal?
Not at the time, no, because he wasn't allowed to use the phone.
Yes.
So we had no contact.
Tell us about that. What happened, as I understand it, is that basically an administrative error took place and a marker was put against him, according to prison policy, in fact, that no longer exists. But the effect of it, quite wrongly, was to prevent him access to using the phones.
Yeah.
So for the whole of the 9 days...
He couldn't speak to anyone.
He spoke to no one?
Only us on one visit.
Yes.
So the whole time he's there thinking about everything and staring at a phone on the wall saying Samaritans, he can't get no help. He can't ring his family and ask for support. Like, we was his support. We was his go-to.
Yes.
We would have talked him round. We would have brung him, give him rational thoughts.
Yes.
And he couldn't do that. And for no fault of his own, because it was all a mistake and shouldn't have even put on his name.
Yes. That error took place, in fact, when a cell-sharing risk assessment form was being carried out, and that's, again, standard practice. But what you've noted at the top of page 19 is that the officer completing that assessment, apart from making the error about giving him no access to phones, recorded on that form that Rocky was a high risk to others due to healthcare, no thoughts of suicide or self-harm, shocked by length of sentence. What you have noted, and I think it might be fair for me to say are shocked by, is that it appears from the records not only that Rocky was not seen by a GP on admission, he wasn't seen by a doctor on admission, but that he wasn't even considered for admission straight to the healthcare wing.
No, he literally came out of a hospital and went into a cell. Thought they would have,
You thought they would have...
put him onto the hospital, or at least open the act so they could watch him further.
Yes. He was seen on the 11th of July, so the day after he'd been admitted to Chelmsford, by a mental health nurse who noted the previous inpatient admission and asked again, or recorded, that he needed a mental health assessment. And what you've told us is that on the same day, a prison officer recorded that he had received a self-harm warning form about Rocky. And what he recorded when he acted on that was that Rocky was still finding his feet, but had no thoughts of suicide or self-harm, and that he did not think that activation of the self-harm and suicide monitoring procedures, ACCT, was needed at the time. So, in summary, Crystal, quite a few professionals have now seen your brother on admission or the following day, and at no stage has anyone thought to activate those procedures which exist, as far as we understand them, to protect those prisoners who are vulnerable or at risk.
And it costs nothing to open an act, nothing at all.
Yes. On the 11th, so again, the day after he'd been admitted, Rocky did see a prison psychiatrist, but there it was recorded that Rocky had never self-harmed, denied any thoughts or plans, and that he'd been sectioned several times previously, and that his sentence was still sinking in. He asked for his medication to be reinstated, and that was done, and then a review was scheduled for the 20th of July 2018. You summarise by saying that from your understanding of the records, he never received a comprehensive mental health assessment whilst in prison. And he was allocated to no one for monitoring.
Yep.
Crystal, you were able to visit just once. I think that was on the 16th of July.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to tell us a little about how that went and how he seemed?
I remember absolutely everything, even down to what we was wearing. We went into the visiting hall and he was just sitting there. And he just looked his handsome self, but just lost, not there.
All right. Take your time.
But every time he touched her, someone would come over and tell her, no, touch him. Yeah, you'd look around the visiting hall and see everyone else doing it. It just, another thing, it felt like he was victimised.
Yes.
And I just kept trying to keep him positive and feed him. I said, right, what do you want to eat? What do you want to drink? And went and got loads of food and drink.
Yes.
And he just said, this has been the worst week of my life. And
He said,
it's been the worst week of my life. And I said, well, like, you're just settling in. Just tried to reassure him.
yes.
I said, like, we'll appeal it. I just kept telling him all things that we could do. I said, and have you told someone how you're feeling? And he said yes. I said, no, have you really told someone? And he said, they've told me I'll never get parole. There's no point in trying.
Who had told him that?
Other prison officers.
I see.
He said that I'm going to be in here forever. And he kept telling his girlfriend to move on and find someone else. And then he just kept begging my mum to look after herself and not do nothing stupid.
Yes. Crystal, thank you. What you know now is that on the 19th of July, Rocky was moved from E-wing, which was the drug treatment wing, for those essentially coming off drugs, into the general prison population. What you have recorded from the records, from the prison records, is that the officer making that decision recorded that Rocky presented as withdrawn and quite overwhelmed by his surroundings. He spoke openly and honestly about how he was feeling and struggled to maintain eye contact. The officer has recorded that Rocky had recently arrived after being in a secure unit. Wing staff state Rocky is not a discipline issue, and due to his level of vulnerability, I believe he is suited for D-wing, general population. At no point did Rocky possess any thoughts of suicide or self-harm. Now, Crystal, again, it seems obvious to you, I think, that he was not suitable to go into the general population.
But even, would you walk into a cell and see someone withdrawn, not giving eye contact,
Yes.
all of them signs, and still not open an act, or still move him into somewhere new? Why not just leave him in that cell and watch him a bit longer? Like, what was the urgency of distressing him more?
Yes. The move occurred late in the morning on the 19th of July. Yes, I'm so sorry, the 19th of July 2018. And Crystal, I don't intend to go through this section of your witness statement in detail, but what you now know is that Rocky was found hanging in his cell that afternoon and was pronounced dead at 3 p.m.
Yep.
Your family learnt of his death through phone calls from other inmates, is that right?
Yeah.
You had not known that he was being moved on the day that he died?
Because we still had no contact with him.
No. When did you come to learn that he had been moved that day?
I don't think I found out about that until a few days later.
Yes. You say in your witness statement that they moved him anyway. You knew that that could be a trigger. They should have known that that might be a trigger.
I'm not a professional, and they're triggers. Like, you're professional people with these people all the time. Why would you not know that's a trigger?
Yes. You had tried to warn those treating him in the lead up to his sentence. You had written to the judge
Yep.
who was sentencing him in the Crown Court to explain the danger.
Yep.
If you could look with me, please, at page 21 of your witness statement and at paragraph 112 at the top of the page. You tell us there about the immediate impact on you of learning that Rocky had died, the shock and grief and horror. You go on to say this, and I wanted to read a couple of sections of your witness statement, if that's all right. You say in the middle of that paragraph, I was angry at all the people who had let Rocky down, including EPUT and the prison service. I was also angry at the judge who sentenced him, even after we told him this would happen. All of this could have been prevented if people had listened to us, listened to Rocky, and actually helped him instead of punishing him. You go on to say he was so low and so alone and completely unsupported in prison that he saw no other option. I want to take you through, Crystal, some of the matters you've set out, because there were a number of investigations and reports in the wake of Rocky's death. You've set out some of the major findings in your witness statement, and I don't intend to take you through all of those, but some of them tie in with the matters you've raised that you want to see changed, and I'd like to take you through those. So you tell us that because he died in prison, the Prison and Probation Services Ombudsman produced a report, but that because that body do not investigate healthcare provision within prisons, NHS England commissioned an annex to the report about healthcare provision, or the lack thereof, which was included as an annex to the report. What I wanted to ask you about is that you tell us in paragraph 115 that the Ombudsman contacted you to ask about your concerns as a family, and you told the Ombudsman that you wanted to know what mental health care Rocky had received in prison and why he hadn't been moved into a healthcare wing. Sitting here now, do you know the answer to either of those questions?
No.
One of the findings of the report, or the key findings, are set out as follows. This is the Ombudsman, we're very concerned that although Mr. Stenning had several risk factors for suicide and self-harm when he arrived at Chelmsford, reception staff failed to identify these, and instead relied on Mr. Stenning's assertions that he had no thoughts of harming himself. As a result, an opportunity to support him under ACCT procedures was missed. The Ombudsman then notes that there was a further failure to identify those risk factors when he was moved, it says here, to a quieter wing on the day of his death, after presenting and having been recorded as presenting as withdrawn, overwhelmed, and vulnerable. It's also recorded here that due to an oversight by staff, is how it's phrased, he was not given access to the telephone system. And it's very clear to you, Crystal, as you've described it, that hugely increased his sense of isolation at that time.
Rocky would have rung us, and he did. How can, on one occasion, Rocky was allowed home leave from the hospital?
Yes.
To come out for a family meal. And they said he's having suicidal thoughts, we don't think it's advisable. And I said, it's my son's birthday, I want him to come for a meal, I'll bring him back. And he said, as long as you think you can keep him safe, you watch him like 24 hours, like the whole time you've got him with you, then it's down to you. One of the doctors that released him for the day.
Yes.
I thought that was very unprofessional to say to someone, put that on me, but I would, and all of us kept him safe. My whole family kept him safe. He'd done nothing like that to himself in our homes.
Yes.
But in their care, with all them people around him, with all that medical and training, and they still failed him.
Yes.
So it wasn't me who needed to watch him and keep an eye on him.
Yes, in that way, that doctor's recommendation to you that you must keep him safe is insulting, almost. Is that fair?
Yeah.
The Ombudsman made a number of recommendations which are set out on page 22 and paragraph 117 of your witness statement. essentially around producing clear guidance for reception staff to identify vulnerable prisoners who are at risk of suicide or self-harm, and to review policy and strategy and so on. There were also a number of recommendations arising from the clinical review, which, as I explained, was annexed to the Ombudsman's report. And the major finding in that clinical review was that the care that Rocky received in prison was not equivalent to the care that he would have received had he not been in prison.
Yeah.
Failures to address his risk factors for suicide and self-harm, and also a failure to consider using the care programme approach. The clinical review also identified a number of concerns with the emergency response that took place when Rocky was found in his cell.
Yeah.
And again, a number of recommendations were made that you have set out. You also tell us, Crystal, about, over the next 2 or 3 pages of your witness statement, about the root cause analysis report following an investigation carried out by the Trust. And if you look, please, at page 23 in paragraph 121, you say there that you know that internal investigation was carried out by the Trust, but you say there was no contact with us as the family unit until the 23rd of September 2018. Do you mean that's the first contact you had from the Trust at all?
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
And what was the nature of that contact when it did come on the 23rd of September? Can you remember?
Not completely. I feel like it was a letter just stating like the findings and what they was putting forward to change, but I can't remember exactly.
No, that's fine. So were you asked, I suppose that I should have asked it differently, were you asked at all, did anyone come and ask you about any part of, as part of that investigation by the Trust, were you asked to input into it? Were you asked for your views?
No, not that I'm aware of.
You simply received the report?
Yeah.
You've listed on page 24 the factors that were noted in that investigation report, and they're similar to some of those that were found by the Ombudsman, in that there were failures in the risk assessment that was completed when he was screened or should have been screened on reception to prison. There was no evidence that a full comprehensive assessment was carried out, which should have been done as per the policy that was in place at the time. No consideration given to activating the self-harm and suicide monitoring procedures, concerns about the competency of agency staff, and other contributory factors noted, including the move to another wing on the day that he died. And then if you look, please, at the top of page 25 of your witness statement, the Trust's investigation identifies no root cause and goes on to make a series of recommendations and discuss lessons learned around robust handovers from ward staff at Basildon to prison staff at Chelmsford, audits, reviews of risk assessments, and the need for a comprehensive mental health assessment within 72 hours. Mm. Can I put it in this way? And you must tell me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Crystal, but all of this was fairly obvious to you, is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I probably could have done a better job. And I'm not saying that he never would have done this, but this wouldn't have happened. This would not have happened. Because they've got a tick list, and they didn't even tick none of their tick lists off. And even if you haven't, where is your passion? You're looking at someone that's just been given a long sentence, just come out of a hospital. Open the act, it's costing you nothing. It's no more paperwork for you, nothing.
Yes.
What? I don't understand why none of them done that. I really don't understand.
And still don't understand
No.
it now.
No. But I really would like to just say to one of them, why did you not just think, oh, you never know, let's just tick this?
Yes.
Why? Isn't it better to be safe than sorry?
An inquest was held into Rocky's death in June 2018 that you attended and you were legally represented. And you gave evidence, in fact, I think.
2019?
Sorry?
Was it 2019?
29, it was, I'm so
Yes,
sorry.
so-
Of course it was, 2019.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, that's
That's
me
okay.
misreading it. You give some details about the inquest on page 26 of your witness statement. You gave evidence on behalf of your family, I think.
Yeah.
And Crystal, you spoke about Rocky as a person and tried to convey who he had been and the person that he was.
Mm.
I want to talk to you a little about the jury's conclusion, because what you tell us is that you as a family felt very much heard and validated by the jury. If we could take a look, please, at paragraph 125, it's the bottom paragraph on page 26. The conclusion returned was one of suicide with the following narrative. We, the jury, can conclude that Rocky Stenning was at risk of self-harm, suicide during the period of his stay at Chelmsford Prison. There was a failure to properly and adequately assess and review Rocky Stenning's risk of self-harm and suicide from his reception up to and including his move to D-Wing. Many adequate and appropriate precautions were taken to manage Rocky Stenning's risk of self-harm and suicide. However, there were a number of factors which may have impacted on his mental state, and those are listed as the restriction on his access to telephones, Chapter 3 triggers, access to illegal substances, and the length of his sentence. And the jury also concluded that the resuscitation attempts were adequate and appropriate in the circumstances. Your overriding feeling from that narrative conclusion is this right? The jury were very clear that the risks to Rocky that should have been apparent, or that there were risks to Rocky harming himself or attempting to take his own life that should have been identified during those 9 days at Chelmsford.
Absolutely.
One of the things you tell us is that at the conclusion of the inquest, the coroner said in open court that she did intend to make what is called a prevention of future deaths report, but we know that one was not issued in the end. As far as you are aware, Crystal, why was that? Do you know?
I don't know. I just know that it still happens there.
You just know that what? I'm sorry?
That deaths are still happening there.
Yes. What that also means is that you don't know, as a family, what action, if any, has been taken in response to the recommendations that might have been made.
No.
Do you know anything about any action? So we went through some of the major findings of the prison ombudsman's report.
Mm-hmm.
We looked briefly at some of the findings of the root cause analysis report. Crystal, do you as a family have any information about what action has been taken as a result of either of those two reports?
No.
I'd like to move, please, to page 29 of your witness statement. And this is where you've listed, and I think we've covered some of them, but I want to ensure that you have the chance to talk them through. You've listed some of the things that you would like to see done differently or to change. And Crystal, the first that you list is issues around staffing. You've told us that you found many of the staff on Hadley ward and other wards, I think, to be rude and unapproachable and uncommunicative. And you say here that you think staff retention was an issue.
I feel like there wasn't always like consistency in staff and things, and the language barrier and the communication between staff and patient and family wasn't any good at all. I feel like we was lucky to have one person. If there wouldn't have been that one person being our voice, then I don't know what we would have done, really.
The nurse that you described,
Yeah.
who had a good relationship with Rocky, and it's notable that that particular nurse's care of Rocky stood out because it was just that one person in whom you saw that level of care. The next issue you raise is better community support.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we've been over that. There appears to have been just periods of time and gaps where you were essentially abandoned to look after him. Is that fair?
I feel like there needs to be more support and easier support. I think it needs to be like easier to get hold of someone to help you. I think they need to listen to you a bit more. You as a family know your relatives more than they do, so they should take on board what you're saying.
Yes.
Even if it is for a monitoring time, and it should never be until they hurt someone or until they hurt themselves. They need help regardless if they're hurting themselves or anyone.
Well before that point.
Yeah, exactly.
And then at the bottom of page 29, you say, one of the most serious concerns that I had was the lack of a proper handover when Rocky was transferred to prison.
Yeah.
We've covered that in some detail, but is there anything further?
I don't think it was expressed enough to them that he had just come out of a mental health unit. Like, literally, that should have been on the front of his file.
Yes.
Just came straight from a mental health unit. Please, and then as you go through the record, the long sentence, the vulnerability, that he's passed, like everything, it should be there clearer.
As you say, all of those factors that should have engendered a tick, tick, tick.
The act, that's all that goes through my head is act. Why did you not open one?
Yes. I've been calling it ACCT, but let's go to that. The ACT training, you say, I'm over the page now, on page 30 in paragraph 142, that you consider that there needs to be much better training on self-harm and suicide in prisons and the risk, identifying risks.
Definitely. And why is there anything in themselves that they can do that with?
Yes.
I know human rights, but surely there shouldn't be anything in there they could do that with, especially anyone that's got that in their past.
Yes.
And the people that are working in these places, anyone in a prison really are vulnerable, whether they've got mental health or not. So these people should have better training.
You say there should be regular training, more funding should be devoted to ensuring that staff in prisons understand suicide and self-harm and know how to use the measures that exist to help them keep prisoners safe. You say a better understanding of Rocky's case might have made a difference.
Yeah.
That is your strong belief.
No one can ever say it would change things, but yes, definitely, I believe it would have changed things.
Yes. Crystal, I've come to the end of my questions for you, and in a moment we'll take a look at the photographs that you've provided of Rocky. First, Chair, do you have any further questions for this witness? No. Could we see the photographs now, please? Thank you. What will happen now, Crystal, is that we'll take a short break of around about 10 minutes to see whether any other call participants have any questions, or your lawyers have any questions they'd like me to put to you. And if they don't, you'll then be free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed
Thank you.
for your evidence. I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
On behalf of the inquiry, I want to start by thanking each of those who have come here to Arundel House to give oral evidence about their experiences and the experiences of those who have died. Each of them, through their own sorrow and devastation, has done so with dignity and fortitude. We do not underestimate the courage and resilience that each has shown in sharing their evidence with the inquiry. To the families of those who have died, the inquiry gives this assurance: you have been heard, you are being heard, your voice matters. Those you loved and who have died mattered, and they matter still. You have brought out into the glare of public scrutiny a wide-ranging and harrowing series of failings in care extending over the course of decades and across the county of Essex. Before we close this hearing today, we take the opportunity to reflect on a central theme that has run throughout the evidence we heard in it, as well as through the evidence of the families we heard from in July and October 2025. That is, the protection and care we afford, or should afford, to those who are most vulnerable in our society. In the inquiry's October 2025 hearing, a large number of witnesses spoke about the failings in the care provided by mental health services in Essex to older age adult relatives who were inpatients. In this hearing, those listening may have been struck by the fact that just under half of those from whom we heard were parents or siblings of much younger men and women. 2, Ben Morris and Tilly-Ann King, were 20 and 21, and 1, Glenn Holmes, was just 19. Georgina Sefton, Milan Radovanovic and Rocky Stenning all died before the age of 30. 4 bereaved mothers and 2 bereaved sisters of those 6 young adults spoke with clarity to call for change. Those families spoke of failures in the crucial period of transition from CAMS to adult mental health services, in particular Lisa Bates's daughter, Tilly-Ann King, and Amanda Cook's brother, Glenn Holmes. Their evidence also revealed concerning attitudes and approaches by trust staff to the young adults under their care. In particular, failures on the part of professionals to see past what was often characterised as bad behaviour and instead to recognise and to address with compassion the complex and serious mental health issues that lay beneath. Lisa Morris recognised that her son Ben's behaviour might at times have been challenging, but she told us of how she learned of staff bragging about a confrontational exchange, how she heard while on the phone with him a particular incident of physical restraint, and of him being a young man who was in fear. Lisa Bates described her horror at the language staff used both to and about her daughter, Tilly Ann, kicking off again, when what Lisa could see was a mental health crisis in her daughter, whom she described as her most precious gift, reaching a devastating endpoint. Samantha Cook told us that her sister Paula described being made to feel less than human by staff. Amanda Cook gave evidence that she was told by staff that her brother Glenn was just attention-seeking and that she should leave him to it. To her, it was in fact clear that Glenn's repeated attempts to harm himself were anything but. We heard today from Amanda Cook that her brother was desperate for help. These actions were an expression of serious mental illness. Rocky Stenning's sister, Crystal, spoke just now about her brother's first inpatient admission, aged just 16, and the challenges he experienced in accessing appropriate support when discharged to live with her. Those families and the families of Terry Dix, Daniel Markovich, Paula Peretti, Christopher Irwin and Marion Michelle highlighted a number of other grave concerns that will be by now all too familiar to those following this inquiry. Those included failures to admit, failures to plan, coordinate or review treatment in any kind of joined-up way, or in some cases even to create care plans or allocate care coordinators. Over-medication, a crisis response, reactive approach to treatment, failures to offer any meaningful treatment other than medication, a lack of holistic, patient-centered care, inadequate or non-existent risk assessments, failures to keep patients safe, allowing access to sharp instruments, safeguarding failures, unsafe ward environments, unwarranted physical restraint and excessive use of force, inadequate or non-existent interaction and communications between mental health services and physical health services, as well as other agencies, drug and alcohol services, the criminal justice system, and prison services, and a basic lack of compassion and kindness. The families we have heard from have all given powerful evidence of their own unwavering efforts to seek help and information from mental health services, to understand treatment plans, to understand how their vulnerable relatives would be kept safe. They spoke of loving, supportive, wider families and support networks standing ready to assist, to give background, to provide input. They spoke of having been sidelined, dismissed, ignored, or made to feel as though they were exaggerating or were neurotic mothers. Despite her regular visits to the Linden Centre, Anne Sefton knew nothing of her daughter Georgina's serious suicide attempts until after she had died. Lisa Bates told us of her increasing desperation to convince staff of the need to admit Tilly and the urgent seriousness of her situation. Sonia Edwards spoke of being continually pushed away and said, "It was almost like my eyes were the only ones that could see what was going on." Milan Radovanovich's mother told us of being almost wholly excluded from any information about his mental health care and treatment, even in respect of the most crucial decisions. She too was told to leave him to his own devices when she raised concerns. Amanda Cook told us of her repeated efforts to be involved in her brother Glenn's care. Terry Dix's mother, June, said that she never really knew what was going on with his treatment, and that staff refused even to provide basic information when Terry was discharged in November 2017 about the basis for the decision to discharge him. At that point, June said, he was the worst the family had ever seen him. We heard today from Crystal Stenning about the efforts she made to get help for her brother Rocky. She spoke of visiting Rocky on an inpatient unit and staff being rude and unapproachable. She told us that staff treated her as if she was an inpatient herself. We again heard evidence about a number of cases in which those who died had a history of serious addiction issues and substance misuse. In many cases, families told us that those issues had arisen from attempts to self-medicate, as well as a lack of other support and therapeutic care. In all cases, we heard that no consistent or adequate treatment for those addiction issues was made available. Gosha Brechko Novak, over the course of a long period of alcohol addiction, received no consistent treatment for that addiction. Paula Peretti's addiction issues went unaddressed despite her repeated pleas for help. Equally, Daniel Markovich, who we heard was addicted to prescription medication. His father Simon told us how he struggled to get help. In some cases, including for Tillian King and Christopher Irwin, clinicians continued to prescribe antidepressant or other related medication, sometimes at increasingly high doses, in the face of complete honesty by the patient with those same clinicians about ongoing use of and dependence on alcohol and illicit drugs. Anne Sefton noted that her daughter's records contained observations about her daughter Georgina following her feelings and about a lack of motivation and self-discipline. Addiction, said Christopher Irwin's mother Sonia Edwards, was treated like a moral failing rather than an illness. We further heard from Amanda Cook that her brother Glenn was unable to access help due to his use of alcohol. Crystal Stenning told you, Chair, that healthcare professionals blamed the drugs. They said that was all that was wrong with him. Sonia Edwards said that her son Christopher experienced discharge as abandonment, describing the approach as patch you up and get you out. That was reflected in Lisa Bates's evidence about her daughter Tilly, who endured what Lisa described as a vicious cycle of short admissions, treatment for serious self-harm injuries, discharge, and repeat. Paula Peretti's sister, Samantha Cook, described Paula's bag being dropped at her feet on the basis that the bed was needed immediately, at a point when her sister was saying to anyone who would listen, "I need help. I feel like I want to take my life." These families told us that their family members needed help and that they did not get it. Thinking again about the vulnerability not only of those inpatients but of their bereaved family members, it is notable that the witnesses told us that their suffering was compounded in many cases by the attitudes of both the Trust and other agencies in the wake of the deaths of their relatives. Lisa Morris was bounced between the ward and police before officers finally attended her home to tell her that her son Ben had died the night before. When they did, it was, she said, brutal beyond belief, entirely without compassion. Samantha Cook spoke of the feeling of powerlessness in the depths of grief, battling to seek information. Anne Sefton knew nothing of any investigation into Georgina's death or the serious untoward incident report the Trust published until she came to engage with this inquiry. Anastasia Fuller received a letter of condolence from the Trust referring to her son Milan as a daughter, and a meeting with Trust representatives in which she was presented with Excel spreadsheets about learning for the Trust in administrative jargon that meant nothing to her. Karen Michelle, too, asked why she had to fight for answers when her sister had just died. She said, "It wasn't provided to me and I still don't know. Should it be the police? Should it be IPUT? You know, it's not clear to me, and does the same happen if somebody gets in a road traffic accident? Do they have the same treatment? Or is it just when people die in mental health institutions? I don't know, because maybe they're worth a bit less than other people." She went on to say this: all people actually want is the facts of what's happened and where their loved one is. They might get shouted at a bit, but surely they are able to deal with that if somebody has lost someone. It's just very badly managed, very badly managed. Chair, once again, this inquiry has heard deeply troubling evidence from the bereaved families. We have heard about recurrent systemic issues of profound concern. These are not limited to the care of those who went on to die. They extend to the way in which their families were treated at the time of their lowest ebb. The inquiry is closely examining the evidence from bereaved families and will explore the concerns which they have raised further within the thematic hearings. Their evidence will also be used to inform and assist the work of the inquiry in identifying recommendations to improve future care of mental health inpatients. Our next hearing will start on the 6th of July. Information about what we are expecting that and future hearings to cover is available on the inquiry's website. In the meantime, the inquiry is driving forward its investigations and its other important work in liaison with its core participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Troop. So we have now come to the end of this hearing, and I wish to give my sincere thanks to everyone who has provided evidence over the past few weeks. I don't underestimate how challenging it can be for some family witnesses to give their accounts to an inquiry in a public forum such as this, and I am very grateful indeed. The evidence shared with the inquiry is vital to our work and contributes enormously to our understanding of the issues. It's given me a great deal to think about and has raised matters that I and my inquiry team will consider very carefully. This also marks the end of the hearings dedicated solely to family evidence. And as I said at the start of the hearings during my opening statement, I do want to reassure those families who wish to engage that I welcome their input in other ways. The inquiry will continue to offer flexibility and support to all those family core participants wishing to contribute. As Ms. Troop has already said, our next public hearing will begin on the 6th of July, and it will focus on systemic issues relating to inpatient care. And as Ms. Troop has also said, more detail about what topics will be covered at future hearings can be found on our inquiry website. A lot of work goes into running these public hearings, so I wish to conclude by thanking all those who have enabled this hearing to take place. That includes counsel and my wider inquiry team, the staff here at Arundel House who have made us feel very welcome, the security team, our technical support team who run the audio visuals for us, and those who have provided emotional support, the evidence handlers, and our excellent transcriber, Louise Papa, sitting there. I appreciate the hard work that is needed to ensure the smooth running of hearings, and I am extremely grateful to all of those who have made it possible. Thank you very much indeed.